You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the weekly Firecast, episode 24, interview with Shane Draper of Draper's BBQ.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
Greetings, all you chili heads, barbecuers, hot sauce fanatics, and even you general foodies. Welcome, my name is Scott Roberts. I'm the host of the weekly Firecast, currently the only podcast on the internet that focuses on foods like hot sauce and chili peppers and barbecue. I'm pleased to come to you every week and to share and talk about the foods that I love and present some of the biggest names in fiery foods and barbecue as well. And in this episode, I talked to Shane Draper of Draper's BBQ. Now, as far as being a national name, he's only been on the scene for about a year or two, but he's already come out with a couple of really great products. One is Draper's BBQ Smokin' Sauce, one of the best barbecue sauces I've tasted in the past couple years. And he's also come out with a seasoning or two. As he talks about in the forthcoming interview, he's taken kind of a little sabbatical as of late, but he's coming back stronger than ever. Plus, he's collaborating with one of my favorite names in the whole fiery foods world. As a matter of fact, he gives an exclusive announcement, and that's later in the interview. Stick around to hear of that. I'm really excited to hear. And of course, Shane talks about his roots, which goes back to his grandfather and their barbecue business. Of course, being a fellow barbecuer, I have to ask him all kinds of things, general barbecue techniques and tools and flavors and whatnot, what all he loves. I pick his brain a little bit, but it's a great long interview. So long, in fact, that I'm just going to go ahead and trim all the fat out of this episode. I'm not going to have a review of the week. Next week, though, I'm going to have a review of the week, plus maybe a few new features. So you'll definitely want to stick around and listen to the 25th episode of the weekly Firecast. That's coming up next week. Now, as far as any housekeeping notes that I have this week, I try to make these episodes as evergreen as possible so that if you're listening to this a year from now, you won't be getting a whole lot of outdated information. But I do have to mention that next weekend, the weekend of February 16th and 17th is going to be the Fiery Foods weekend at the North Market in Columbus, Ohio. Now, as far as the actual size and scope of the show, it's still fairly small. There is no more than 24 fiery foods vendors, hot sauce, barbecue, salsa, you name it. But if you've been into hot sauce the past several years, there are several big names, some of the best gourmet, small batch manufacturers out there. Now, just to name a few, and I'm not, picking favorites. Well, they might be my favorites. There is Cajuns, Heartbreaking Dawns, Race City Sauce Works, Volcanic Peppers, Black Swamp Gourmet, Chuck Evans of Montezuma brand, who was, in fact, the very first person to come up with a commercial Chipotle sauce. Hard to believe, way back 25 years ago. In 1988, he did that. Well, he's a Columbus, Ohio resident, so of course he's going to be there. Lots of fun contests and things to do. So if you're anywhere in central Ohio, make it to Columbus next weekend to the North Market Show. The details are on my website. You can simply just go to scottrobertsweb.com/calendar. Find the dates, and there's the link, the map, everything that you need. And guess what? Yes, I am also going to be there. This is going to be the first time I get to attend this show. After hearing so many great things about it, it should be a fun time for all. So as I mentioned, there is not much housekeeping this week. I would like to get right away, to my interview with Shane Draper of Draper's BBQ. Enjoy.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
Joining me on the Skype chat line is Shane Draper of Draper's BBQ. How you doing, Shane?
I'm fantastic, Scott. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So what have you been up to for the past couple months?
Well, we had to we took a little time off. We benched the Draper's BBQ line for a little while and did a little soul searching, a little reorganization, put some some of the key people in the right roles again. And, you know, as some of our fans may have noticed, we let go of our radio show that we were doing with, the guys from Barbecue Superstars. I hated that because I love doing the show. But, you know, we got down to the point where I was working a whole lot of hours, and I really needed to kind of recalibrate my personal life and how it interacted with barbecue and how barbecue bled so fervently into my personal life, because there was no real definition of where I ended and it began, and that was fun. I enjoyed it, but you know, the personal life, the family life definitely took a toll. So we've just kind of we've been taking it easy for the past couple months and rethinking this whole thing.
Interesting, yeah, because I know that for a while, a good year or two, I mean, you were heavily out there, the social media and Twitter, and just, I mean, you were really getting, you know, the news about your sauce and your rub out there, and I did the reviews of the products, fantastic stuff, by the way. Of course, we'll get into those a little later. So, yeah, just wondering if you're taking a little sabbatical or just a little winter break.
Yeah, we did, and like I said, did a little soul searching. We kind of realized that I really miss this barbecue thing. It's a lot of who I am. And I don't know that I could live without it. So I just have to, I'm one of those personalities that I'm very much all or nothing with everything I do. I'm either 110% in or I'm just out and don't want to do it. So that is a personality gift as much as it is a flaw. And I'm really trying to learn to calibrate how much I'm doing and realizing it's okay to say no to people. You know, it's okay not to do every presser and every event and every catering gig and you know that comes our way, and that was a lot of our problems was me not saying no.
I certainly understand that. For a while, it's like whenever a fellow chili head blog, they needed help with a project, with graphics, with this, with that, I would just volunteer because I wanted to do everything. But yeah, life, you know, it takes its toll after a while. You have your family, your job, and everything, and you can't do everything for everybody.
Right. Yeah, and that's a piece I don't think a lot of people recognize is everyone's assumed that I've been full-time with this since we launched, and I've never been full-time with this. Now, I've put in 40 hours a week toward it and more, but I still have maintained a day job the whole time, and a demanding day job at that. So it's definitely it's had its trials and tribulations.
Yeah. Well, certainly barbecue is in your blood, and of course it's been in your family's blood for a long time. A lot of people really don't know about your family's history with barbecue and the whole Draper's BBQ business. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone a story about that?
Sure. First off, there's kind of two fairy tales that are Draper's Barbecue, and I've not gone on my way to necessarily correct either one, because I sometimes a good story is better than no story, right? So the first fairy tale is the sauce that is out and the rubs that are out. Those are all my grandfather's recipe. That part is not true. My grandfather did have he had a sauce. It was a vinegar-based sauce, very North Carolina, you know, very tangy, had a lot of heat, had a lot of punch to it. But we recognized we couldn't release that and it go very far because it was just so singular in its use. So I developed our sauces and rubs and released those. The second part is, you know, kind of bringing my grandfather into it. He really started what was Draper's Pit Barbecue, which was a restaurant back in the early 70s, and some of my earliest memories are literally playing in that restaurant. You know, it was the 70s, so you kind of set the scene. Everyone had big collars and funky shirts, and avocado was the color du jour.
I remember that from when I was a kid, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I remember some of my earliest memories, like 2-3 years old, running through the restaurant under this haze of smoke because it was the 70s and, you know, everyone smoked cigarettes while they ate. And that is, honest to goodness, one of my earliest memories is playing in that restaurant. And I didn't realize, like, growing up, you know, how much that wrote on who I was. But I could smell oak or hickory burning, and just, man, it would take me right back to that restaurant every time. But, you know, unfortunately, the restaurant was short-lived. It only lasted about 10 years. He decided to close it. My grandfather is heavily devoted to my grandmother, and realized that he was kind of running two marriages there, and just wasn't fun anymore. Now you got to remember he did barbecue the old school way, which was cut his own wood, you know, burnt down his own coals, you know, stick burning, and shoveled them in on this open brick pit all night to cook, you know, these shoulders of pork and stuff. So he did it the true hard way. I can never do it the way he did. It was a good lesson to watch him do that and to learn those old school pit master techniques. Like, you know, looking back, I don't remember my grandfather ever owning a thermometer ever. Everything was by feel. He would literally lay his hand on the pit and go, "Oh, that's the right temperature," and the pork shoulder was done, and when you picked it up, and it just kind of fell apart, right? I mean, and that was cool to watch that, and it really built this idea of what a barbecue craftsman should be in my mind, very, very early on. So fast forward, out of the 70s into the late 90s, I decided I wanted no part of staying in Western Kentucky, much less barbecue. So we kind of quit barbecuing at that point. We still did things for friends and family, but I joined the military, ran as far away as I could, lived in Japan for 3 years. Kind of lived the life out there. And it was about 7 years ago that he passed away, and about 5 years ago now that I moved back to Western Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And that was really the spark that caused what is now Draper's BBQ, because I kind of revamped the company, come up with a little different focus of how we were going to do things, and decided to launch this line of sauces and rubs.
And at that point, did you say that you really had a consuming passion for barbecue, or was that kind of instilled in you, when you were a kid?
I had like a consuming passion for great food and for flavors, but not necessarily barbecue per se. That was the medium I was working in, mm-hmm. But I could have just as easily done hot sauces or chili, recipes, because all my family, all the men in my family especially, are just amazing cooks. And I just kind of grew up with that, kind of had that gift of I could just look at a, spice rack and just come up with something, or a great example, I cooked some quick, jambalaya tonight. Well, my wife goes thumbing through looking for a recipe card. I'm like, you don't need that. I'll just take care of it. And you start throwing stuff together and she goes, "What is in this? This is the best jambalaya ever." I'm like, I don't know. I put what it called for. You taste it and go, "Oh, it needs this, it needs this." And that's just the way we operate, and it's the way we've always done it. But it wasn't until I came back and thought to myself, this competition barbecue thing is kind of kicking off. It was the first season of Pitmasters. I went and bought Ray Lampe's book, was it like Big Time Barbecue, I think it was. And just started, I was like, I'm going to cook everything in here just for giggles. I kind of want to learn some stuff. My family are always great pork shoulder cooks, but they weren't necessarily great rib cooks. And we definitely, I was the first one to ever bother with a brisket.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just want to learn to cook all this stuff. I just want to treat all these, proteins with as much respect as I can, and try to develop these awesome flavors and do it my own way. So that's kind of where it all started. And I went through Ray's book and made a few of his sauces and thought, wow, I can do this. So a lot of my barbecue branding and ideas started with me trying to recreate what Draper's Barbecue was, and using, some books that I'd bought and throwing that together with some flavor ideas I had from living in Japan. You don't always think of throwing, certain ingredients together, but, if you eat them, they make sense to you. And that's what I love. I'm really appreciative of traveling all over the Pacific and coming up with a kind of a new palate, if you will.
Oh, yeah. There's different flavor profiles. Once you taste them, it just completely broadens your horizons. It broadens your whole understanding of flavor.
Right.
It's not just one little narrow set view. Do you think that's influenced the way you create products now?
Absolutely. The Japanese chef or cook mentality is it's all about balance, and it's all about each ingredient having its own voice. So, for example, if you were to cook some vegetables, if it were broccoli, peas, and some sort of protein mixed in there, you never overcook one where it takes away from what Mother Nature did to it. It will always have crunch. Mm-hmm. It always have a lot of flavor, but it's never overcooked Southern, vegetables like what we have. People put on a pot of green beans down here and they cook them until they're mush. And I realized that I didn't like that growing up. So when I went to Japan, that's when I first started really eating vegetables and going, oh my gosh, this stuff is great. This green bean, it's crunchy, and it's amazing. So a lot of that philosophy went into our sauces and rubs. I just refuse to compromise on flavors or cheap ingredients. I'm not a big fan of that. I would rather our customer base go, well, if I put too much on it, it gets a little heavy, it gets a little too vibrant, because in my mind, that's good because I've used high quality ingredients and a little dab of douya,
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about your products for a little bit. You mentioned that your grandfather had come up with the initial recipes. How much have your current products deviated from that? Have they been revamped so much that they really don't resemble what he created?
Yeah, they're not even close at all. His vinegar sauce literally had about 4 ingredients. vinegar, red pepper. I think there's some garlic powder in there, and some sugar to kind of balance some stuff out. And paprika, so maybe 5 ingredients. Mm-hmm. But it was great on a pulled pork sandwich. And as far as rub, I mean, in the 70s, rub was salt and pepper. There wasn't, I'm going to mix these 27 ingredients together to make a rub. So I often chuckle to myself because I see what we've done to barbecue in the competition world in many ways is the bastardization of barbecue. But you got to do what you got to do to get as much flavor in as you can.
Not only that, there's just so many different flavor palettes out there. So, sometimes it depends on regions of the country or just it could be, different parts of the state. Some people expect things to taste sweeter, some a little bit spicier, some with a little bit more tartness from the vinegar. So you have to have a lot of punch, have a lot of representation from those different areas to kind of please everybody.
Right.
Is that the kind of approach that you've taken nowadays?
Well, it is. I mean, our smoking sauce, the idea was let's make something that represents who we are. And we're located firmly in Western Kentucky, which, we're about 3 hours north of Memphis and about 6 hours, southeast of Kansas City. And a lot of what we do reflects that as far as how we cook. Like a lot of our barbecue, the way it's cooked, is a little bit North Carolina, but the sauces are a little bit Memphis, a little bit Kansas City. It's kind of this hodgepodge.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is take the best of Kansas City and the best of Memphis and make a barbecue sauce that could be put on anything. It wasn't necessarily meant to be a pulled pork sauce. It was meant in my mind that, you could dip chicken nuggets in it. You could fire up the propane, grill and just put some chicken on and throw this on it. It would just kind of make everything better. So it needed to be a thicker sauce with a balance of sweet, heat, a little touch of molasses to kind of nod toward Kansas City, a little tang to nod toward to Memphis and North Carolina, and it had to have a little bite to it. And that's where that was kind of the goal when I started developing our sauce. And the other piece of it was my dad was a huge Sweet Baby Ray's fan. And there's nothing wrong with that sauce. I still buy it. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, I love it. It's probably my top 10 favorite sauces.
Me too. Especially for mass-produced, can always get in any store that you want for a cheap price, right? It's probably one of the best.
Oh, yeah.
But when I really started bringing us out as a company, I said, listen, when we start catering and stuff, we're not using someone else's sauce. And my dad being my dad, me being me, we're both hard-headed, said, well, you just can't make a better sauce than Sweet Baby Ray's. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, oh, yes, I can. And I literally spent one fall and winter just working on this sauce. And then one day it kind of all came together, and I literally marched. He lives next door now because I bought the place next to him when I moved back to Kentucky. And I marched. I remember so vivid. Pot's still hot. Still got the pot right off the stove. I literally marched potting all across the yard. I'm like, you got to try this. And I remember him trying it going, wow, that's really good. You've got something. We can at least start catering with that now. And that recipe was about 85% of what became smoking sauce.
And then what did you do after that? Just a little bit of tweaks here and there to come up with a final product?
Yeah, the follow-on story is it wasn't just a few weeks later, we were invited by Tucker Cooker Company to come down and compete in Memphis in May. Now, at this time, we had done one competition. We had no business going to Memphis in May and competing on a team. So, but I was like, man, this is like being invited to the World Series. I mean, like, we're crazy if we don't at least go. We may make a fool of ourselves, but we'll have a great time. We took off and went down there for a week, and while we were there, they had the sauce competition. One of the categories was tomato-based sauce, and no one wanted to enter what they brought. And I was like, well, man, I'll throw it out there. Let's see. And my thought was, like, there's 230 teams here. If I finish in the top 100, we've got something pretty good. Mm-hmm. Because these are my barbecue heroes. I literally, Chris Lilly was there, Dr. Barbecue was there, Tuffy was there, Johnny Trigg was there. I mean, it's kind of a who's who of barbecue. It was so crazy watching these guys on TV and then walking around, get them to sign my book or shake hands and have real conversations because, they were accessible and attainable, and it was, that was the cool part of it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, so let's enter our sauce and see what happens. Worst comes to worst, we're entering this under Tucker Cooker's name, so there will be no mud on our face. Yeah, we did, and we wound up finishing 12th in that year's Memphis in May. So I was like, wow, that's pretty good. And we finished ahead of Tuffy and some really big names, down there. And I was like, well, we ended up in the top 12, of the entries down there. That's a pretty good sauce. Let's take this back and let's tweak it a little bit, and we'll make it something pretty awesome. And we did. I brought it back, reworked it a little bit, got it ready more for mass production, muted some flavors, tweaked others. Got the consistency more where it needed to be for mass production, and then we found a co-packer and threw it out there. And it wasn't probably 2 to 3 weeks after we got our first batch that I actually shipped you. You're one of the first reviewers. It was the guys from Hot Sauce Daily, and then I stumbled onto you from them, and so you were actually one of the second bottles we ever shipped out for review.
And it was fantastic stuff. It was one of my favorites of the year. What was it, 2010, 2011?
Yeah, 2010 I think it was.
Yeah, and then you had the AP rub, which stands for all-purpose rub.
Right.
Do you currently have that in your production?
We still have that. We're going to revamp AP rub a little bit. So what happened, AP rubs, it literally is all-purpose, and we've kind of revamped it to mean, anything's possible because, we put this stuff in peanut brittle, we put it on popcorn, put it on ribs, put it on chicken, put it on Boston butts. It goes on everything. It's salt and pepper replacement for us. And it's great as it is, but now that I pushed that out there so fast because I realized that we would never make it just as a sauce company and we needed a secondary product. Mm-hmm. It was about 3 months after AP went out and we got great reviews. You did a great review of it. Everyone loved it, but I always felt that I could come back and make that something that would just blow the doors off the market if I just tweaked it a little more before I had released it. So what we've done is kind of pulled that product back. We reworked it a little bit. And again, we're not making apologies for it not being gluten-free and things like that. We're really just trying to make it the best tasting product out there. And we're not trying to shoot for that Whole Foods. I call it the Starbucks market, right? The guys that are a little too worried about, these buzzwords like gluten-free and, no MSG and things like that. Those are all great things for the average daily diet, but we're talking about something you sprinkle on as an additive, not the main product. So we're really changing our focus in what we do and how we do it. And that's part of the revamp of AP Rub.
And the current rub that you have right now on your website, I haven't tried it. It's the mood enhancer, of course, to play on words with, cows go moo. That's the beef rub. How did you develop that?
Mood Enhancer is probably, out of the 3 products, it's going to sound odd for me to say it, is probably my favorite product. And the reason why I say that is because I did Mood Enhancer once I figured out what it was I was doing. You know what I mean? I kind of took all the lessons learned from Smoke and Sauce, from AP Rub, some more competition learnings, and I'd also shipped about 10 different prototypes to several bloggers on, I kind of handpicked them based on, do they compete regularly? Are they a master judge or are they a certified judge somewhere? And what part of the country are they in? And they actually helped me, through their feedback, develop this product. And I knew we had a winner when Kit Rudd of DeGuayo Barbecue, basically Brian Mayer, slid him some on the side, and Kit wrote me back and said, I don't know when it's for sale, but I want it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, Kit's one of the best brisket cooks in the country, So I was like, okay, we're getting close. And I didn't pull any punches with Mood Enhancer. I just said I threw the gauntlet down. We didn't worry about it being gluten-free. It's got some really cool oddball powders in there, like soy sauce powder and Worcestershire powder, and some things that catch people off guard. And then there's a good healthy amount of MSG in there to really kick up that beefy flavor. Mm-hmm. I really love what that product has done. We came out with it about this time last year. I kind of snuck it out, didn't do a big rollout because I kind of wanted to see what it would do on the competition trail. And Kit placed with it more times than not. And it really, without me advertising that much, has really developed a cult following. And those are my favorite products. The ones that people would show up on my door angry if I took that off the market now. Those are the best ones.
You're ravenous fans, I guess, huh?
Absolutely. Well, especially these competition guys. And once they learn to, they develop a process around your product and they learn to count on it, you better be able to continue to deliver it.
Now, have you thought about getting in a full-time competition BBQ yourself?
I love competition, but I'm such a type A personality that I'm not the best fit for it. right? When we compete, like if I could handpick one or two people to compete with, I'd be okay. But when we compete as a company and as a family, someone's going home mad. You know what I mean? So it's not good for our blood pressure. So I really get more kick out of catering and doing small venue stuff where literally, I mean, you know, and I guess it is kind of an ego boost, but you know, you have person after person come up to you and say, that is just the best barbecue I've ever eaten. Irregardless of what some schwanky judge, you know, is thinking, that's what matters to me is these people that have eaten barbecue all their life. You know, one of the best things, you know, I had this 80-year-old guy at one of the festivals we did. He took a bite of his sandwich, and this guy's a penny pincher. He's a miser. He tried to, Jew us down on the price of the sandwich twice, right? And he took one bite of that sandwich and said, young man, I'll have another one. And I was like, well, okay, what happened? He's like, that's the best pork I've ever had. I'll have another one. And I was like, well, that's saying something then, you know.
Definitely. I'm going to go ahead and take a little break here, but when we return from this commercial break, it's going to be the second part of my exclusive interview with Shane Draper of Draper's BBQ. Stick around.
Poker's been around a long time. The memories, the cards, the money, the players, it all makes for an outstanding experience. But where can you get true knowledge, tips, tricks, and detail? Don't miss the next episode of Two Guys Talking Poker, where poker zealots Vic Porcelli and Andy Kazin interview poker greats like Michael the Grinder Mizrachi, Alan Chainsaw Kessler, Craig Fosselman Raymer, and many more. Add on superb hand analysis and poker industry news, and you've got the Two Guys Talking Poker podcast. Check it out now at twoguystalkingpoker.com. That's twoguystalkingpoker.com.
Do you consider yourself to be a chilihead and want to find some hot new gear to wear?
Oh, yeah.
Look no further than chiliheadcheese.com. If you're a heat freak and love hot sauce, chili peppers, or anything dealing with fiery and spicy foods, this is the place to get t-shirts to show off your obsession. Chilihead Tees is dedicated to giving you the hottest t-shirts, mouse pads, mugs, aprons, and more for the discriminating chilihead. Go to chiliheadtees.com. That's CHILEHEADSTEES.com.
You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can mean all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
I'm Bob Chrisman from the Galaxy Cast, reviewing each and every episode of The Clone Wars, sci-fi entertainment, and more on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we are back. Now here's the second part of my interview with Shane Draper.
Well, let's switch gears here just for a little bit and talk about your personal preferences and things when it comes to barbecue. I know people who love barbecue could talk about it for hours and hours. Let's go ahead and start by asking you a few questions about it. When you cook personally, what kind of smokers do you use?
This is like asking me what's my favorite song, right? I like you play guitar. So it's you have a billion favorite songs for a billion reasons, and that's the way I am with smokers and wood. It depends on my mood of the day. We are sponsored by Green Mountain Grills. Fantastic little grill, love it. It's the easiest smoking I've ever done. We have a Old Hickory CTO that I absolutely adore. I know when I've got to put out, 2 cases of pork, I can count on all 2 cases or every piece in those 2 cases tasting the same and being uniform and excellent. So I love it as a big format cooker. If I'm cooking just for enjoyment, I want to stoke a fire and be outside and really enjoy the camaraderie of with the smoke. Our Tucker cooker is amazing. I love that. burning down coals and putting them in and kind of doing it the old school way when I have time. More times than not, though, we will cook on the CTO right now or one of the Green Mountain grills.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm just cooking supper, or dinner for just my small family, the guys from Fahrenheit Technologies gave me a Grilla smoker, which is a fantastic pellet smoker for small format stuff. I'll go fire it up, through the week because it doesn't burn many pellets. It's very small, and it just gets the job done. So,
do you have any preferences when it comes to wood for smoking?
I'm not the biggest hickory fan. I think it's a little strong. I'm a big oak fan. I like oak, but my favorite overall is pecan. If you told me I only have to get one wood, to use for the rest of my days, I would tell you I would take pecan because I can make it taste any way I want. It's just such a good, it's a bourbony vanilla afternote that I think just suits just about anything you can put on it.
Just out of curiosity, have you tried any of the flavored woods?
I haven't tried the Tabasco ones. I have tried the wine ones, and it was a neat excursion, but I wouldn't it's not my thing so much. I really like smoke being an ingredient, but I just want to be able to kind of identify what the smoke is, not so much color it with anything. You know what I mean?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It's almost a waste of time, and I guess you have little control over that aspect. I would rather infuse the flavor somehow in another part of the process, the seasoning, the injection, the sauce, whatever you do.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny. We get beat up all the time. We do a couple big events each year, and one of them is called Barbecue on the River, and we'll cook for 25,000 of our closest friends, basically, and serve barbecue for 4 days at a time. It never fails. 3 or 4 times a day I'll get called to the front of the tent that we set up, and someone will ask me, what did you do to that pork? And I tell them, it's salt, it's smoke, and it's meat. I don't do anything else to that pork that I'm serving you. And I have people call me a liar. But what it is that if you put the right amount of salt on the outside, a real high quality sea or kosher salt, and smoke it the right way, you just don't have to do a lot else to pork, and I like those 2 ingredients to really shine through, and then I may sprinkle some AP rub into the pork as we dice it up or as we chop it, but I don't necessarily put all that product on the outside of my pork where it's going to fall off anyway, typically. I will wait till I'm in the chop phase, and then I'll sprinkle some AP rub in it if I want it. But when it comes to pulled pork, we really strive to keep it simple and do it close to what my grandfather did.
Interesting. I'm almost the other way. I will season it, inject it, especially when it comes to ribs. I will foil it and put butter and honey and.
Well, ribs is a whole other experiment. That's barbecue candy on a stick, right?
Well, I almost take the same approach, not necessarily going that far, but the same philosophy when it comes to a pork shoulder. I will just put anything and everything on it. But obviously, yes, you do want the flavor of the pork itself to sing for it to really dominate the flavor.
We really have 2 categories of barbecue. We have what we call kind of good eating barbecue, which is simple, straightforward, and very honest. And then we have competition barbecue where we've done, you got to inject it. It's got to set for this many hours. You're going to rub it with these 53 different things. And it's this highly complicated, convoluted process to try to engineer the best bite of barbecue you can.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just my personal preference when it comes to taste, but that's what I do. But no, I do see the benefit of focusing on the main components, the main things, making sure the smoke is right, making sure that the meat is juicy and flavorful, and well, like you, making sure the basic spice, and your instance, salt is there.
Right.
Do you have a particular favorite barbecue meat to cook?
Yes. All of it. It's totally mood dependent. Like some days I'll get up, we cook a lot of pork butts, and I'll go, I've not cooked a shoulder in a long time. I want to kind of commune with my grandfather and cook a shoulder old school, where it takes 18 hours and I got to burn a lot of wood. Other times it's I just want a good brisket and I want it simple. Like what we did for Super Bowl Sunday, I didn't inject the brisket. I didn't do a lot of complicated things to the brisket. It was just beef. It was just plain with smoke and with some mood enhancer on it, nothing fancy. And I'll just kind of go through those moods, and then all of a sudden I'll get hit and I'll go, I've had this idea to make these uber complicated, teriyaki ribs or whatever, and I'll do do those. In fact, the last time that mood hit me, the guys from Intensity Academy have a awesome teriyaki sauce. It's got some heat to it, and I built the whole recipe around that sauce because it's this sauce is fantastic.
Oh, very good sauce. The chai Thai teriyaki. Yeah. Big fan. Okay. When it comes to ribs, do you foil them?
I do typically foil, but again, that's mood dependent, right? My grandfather never foiled anything, ever. So, but what he would do is baste them often with this mixture of like vinegar and water and oil to kind of get the seasonings that were also in there down in the rib. I'm trying to think who. Oh, it was Malcolm Reed from How to Barbecue Right has I think it's like old school barbecue ribs. If you go look up that recipe, it's a no foil, or maybe it's called no foil ribs. But it's pretty much my grandfather's recipe. The first time I read that, I'm like, oh, it's so awesome. This is what my grandfather used to do.
He was onto something back then, I guess, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, it's simple, but you're going to go baste those ribs every 30 minutes, with this process. And it's this really tangy, it has a completely different mouthfeel because you get a little bit more of a crusty rib on the outside. But you get this tanginess, and it's just a different kind of barbecue. But this is the same question where I get asked, well, what's your favorite genre to play on the guitar? It's totally mood dependent. You could say I like metal, but okay, do you like 80s metal? Do you like neoclassical metal? Do you like speed metal? Do you like thrash metal? My thing with barbecue is I need to be able to do it all. You name the genre and the niche, I should be able to hit it. And that's what I like to do most.
So if you're in a mood for like an Yngwie Malmsteen style barbecue, you could do that.
Right.
Or just something very simple like Angus Young, you could pull that off too, right?
Yeah. You're like, hey, I just want simple, straight ahead, like 1930s blues barbecue. I want to think when I'm listening to some old Sun House or Muddy Waters or something, when I eat this rib, I want to be able to close my eyes and think that I'm on the blues trail somewhere in Mississippi back in the 30s.
Yeah.
And I should be able to build a rib that fits that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. What about when it comes to, a nice little segue here, 2010s barbecue? And what I'm referring to by this question is, do you use gadgets? Do you use tools to help you time and temperature and this and that? Do you use any of that kind of stuff?
So here's my take on that. I think everyone should use those things until you develop what I call your barbecue intuition. Rod Gray builds this great timeline that says, I buy exactly this size brisket. I cook it at exactly this temperature for exactly this many hours. I foil it. I put exactly this many ounces of this solution in there. I cook it for another so many hours, and I rest it for exactly this number of hours. And it's repeatable, and it wins, right? Mm-hmm. And his process will include, I pull that brisket when it's at like 203.2. You know what I mean? I like that because it allows you to develop a repeatable process. But I also I remember sitting in there, I'd be sitting in my grandfather's living room, and it's like a bolt of lightning out of the sky would hit him and go, the meat's done. And you see him get up and he just knew. And I'm trying to use the tools in competition to build a repeatable process. But if I cook here at the house, I try not to do that. I want to try to get my intuition and my barbecue mojo, if you will, up a little bit. You know what I mean? I want to be able to touch it and go, okay, a little more. But what I've done is I do use both side by side. So let's say on a pork butt, if I touch it and go, okay, I think it needs another 2 hours. Then I'll go ahead and probe it and go, okay, well, we're at 170 degrees. So yeah, that is about 2 hours before it to be done or whatever. So I've tried to use those tools to develop my intuition, to gauge my intuition.
That certainly makes sense. But you've never gone so far like Tuffy Stone and create spreadsheets and charts, everything like that?
Oh, no, we have spreadsheets. I can, when we're doing competition barbecue, I have an Excel spreadsheet that I can plug in our times, our turn-in times, and it works backwards to tell you exactly what time you put the meat on and so on and so forth. And we've done that for each cooker because each cooker is just a shade different. Our Tucker cooker cooks a little different than our CTO. The CTO, because it has so many fans, may dry out the barbecue, but it creates better bark. So you develop these timelines and these processes based on that cooker. So we've done all that too. I just don't like to rely on it that much.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, people should definitely just get that kind of sixth sense after a while to predict the time when things are done and all that. Personally, with me, I'm still, I'm not in the whole competition stage. I'm not barbecuing every day. So, I'm out there with a thermopen, taking a couple different measurements, probing it and getting the average of the temperature and thinking, I got another hour or two.
Well, there's only two, and I get asked this question all the time. What's one or two tools you would not cook without? One, a good set of knives. That can be whatever your pocketbook can afford. I like the Victorinox, I think, makes a fantastic set of knives for very low entry fee. I mean, we're talking like $20-25 per knife entry fee on these things for a nice chef's knife or a nice butcher's knife. I won't cook without those. And the other one is my Thermopin. Because irregardless of what my gut tells me, my gut may not read how much humidity's in the air, how much water or sap was in the wood we burned, or all these other factors. I rely on Thermopin, then temper that with touch, taste, and feel.
Definitely, and I think Thermopin is one of the greatest inventions, cooking inventions, I should say, developed in the past several years.
I agree, totally. Yeah, we're big proponents of the Thermopin. In fact, I give away about a half dozen of them every Christmas to everyone. Kind of my way to give back. Of man, if I could start over, if I had the money to have bought one of these instead of 2 years after the fact and bought it and started with the Thermopin, I would have. So I try to give those out.
Oh, definitely. And I listed among my top 10 accessories when it comes to barbecue and grilling. And everyone listening to this interview could go back to episode 6 of the Weekly Firecast and hear that list. Shane, when it comes to pet peeves and things that just really drive you nuts about what people do or just anything about barbecuing in general, what would they be?
Oh, I got a pretty good list. The first one, for me as a company, as a businessman, and as a barbecue craftsman, I don't like giant, grandiose blanket statements. A great example, little local joint on the corner from my job that I just started. Best ribs in the state. Okay. Well, what have you done to qualify that statement? Have you been around the state? No, you haven't. I have. I've literally gone around the state of Kentucky cooking barbecue. And I can tell you, sir, that while those may be good ribs for here, those are not the best ribs in the state of Kentucky. So I don't like big blanket statements, best ever, most amazing, winningest, that stuff doesn't mean anything to me. I want just good, honest, humble products that do what they say they're going to do. And do it without a lot of hoopla. That's my preference.
You know what I think of whenever I see a statement like that? The movie Elf where Buddy runs in and, the best cup of coffee. Congratulations. Great work, everybody.
Exactly.
I'm tempted to do something like that.
That would be awesome. You need to have part of your, winners and duds or, biggest statement on a label that didn't live up to category at your year end, product.
The hottest sauce ever or something like that.
Yeah. That's another one I'm sick of. What happened to flavor? And I'm glad that we've got there's a lot of hot sauce crafts people that get it. Mm-hmm. Intensity Academy, Jack's Tailgaters, Cajans, Heartbreaking Dawns. Those guys get it where it's yes, we're hot. Yes, we got some heat, but man, we're about Flavor Town. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's what I'm totally into nowadays.
Me too. I don't care how hot you are. I honestly don't. If it's good, it's good. It doesn't have to be hot to be good, and it doesn't have to be cool to be good, but it's just got to be good. Mm-hmm. Other pet peeves, I think any team showing up to competition, it takes longer for them to set out all their trophies than it does to set up and cook. That's ridiculous. Leave that shit at home. You know what I mean? Don't bring all the hardware to a competition. No one cares. Just show up and cook. Do your thing. Be a good neighbor. State Farm is there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to think: are the judges going to be swayed by anything like that? No, they're not.
They're not, and it's an intimidation thing, and I'm beating my chest sort of thing, and we don't do that. I love teaching. That is one of my favorite passions is teaching barbecue, teaching IT. I love it. So when I'm there, I'm trying to impart knowledge to the new team. Shake hands. Hey, buddy, if you need anything, call me. I need my last stick of wood. You can have it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I want you to have a good time so you keep doing this. That's what it's about to me,
Exactly. Okay. Well, what about maybe a couple really good tips or tricks that you can give the barbecue novices out there?
I think the first one is get a Thermopin. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, your wife will think you're crazy for spending that kind of money, but it will make you a better cook. That's tip number one. Tip number two, and this is going to sound odd coming from a sauce and rub company, don't spend all your money on sauces and rubs. Figure out how to cook the meat first before you add other stuff to it. If you can make the meat taste very, very good with nothing but smoke and salt and a proper technique, then you can make it taste amazing with a high-end rub and a high-end sauce. I think we get wrapped around the consumerism of the gadget and of the new sauce and the new rub more than we do the craftsman part of building good barbecue,
Definitely. There's no magic ingredient that can make lackluster barbecue just taste spectacular.
Exactly. That is it in a nutshell. I highly recommend picking up a book or two. Don't be afraid to go order a couple books, but don't assume those guys, and I call them the barbecue gods that have wrote these books. Don't assume those guys know everything. Okay, they had to fill some pages. They're a good guideline, sure. It's like learning to play that solo. In guitar. Yeah, I can play the solo, or I can make these riffs just like Dr. Barbecue. Okay, that's a good place to start. Now put your own soul into it. Put your own, guts, and your flavor techniques and your profiles and your feelings into that, and make it something that's yours.
Mm-hmm. What's the future hold for you? Do you have any products coming out? Anything that you want to share with everybody?
Well, I still have about 4 sauces and 3 rubs just on the Draper's barbecue side. But this past year, I had the fortune of running into Tracy Carter at Jack's Tailgaters. And Tracy was responsible for us getting invited to Houston and being in Chili Pepper Magazine and doing a couple other really cool things. And through that process, he and I we realized we're kind of brothers from another mother, culinary-wise. We finished each other's sentences. We realized our products mix very well together. In fact, our competition glaze right now that we finished out the year with is basically smoke and sauce, 1 part agave, and 2 of his hot sauces, the pineapple orange and the raspberry chipotle. They mixed together are amazing, and we had great success with them. And that kind of planted a seed in my head that I bet if you put Tracy and I around a table together, we could come up with something just out of this world. Well, we went to Houston, and sure enough, it happened. He and I got to batting around ideas, and then bang, next thing you know, we, inside of just a short amount of time, come up with this whole product line of just very competition-focused products. I mean, no holds barred, no tricks spared. We don't care about the calories. We don't care about the gluten. We don't care about the MSG. It's everything we can to help you win. And that's kind of the tagline. We're like, if we made this sauce, what would our tagline be? And it would be like, no compromises, no excuses, no whiners, just winners. And that's kind of how we've built this whole product line. So we're in the final stages of it, and we're going to start sending it out for testing. Maybe Mr. Roberts will get a little sneak peek at it and give us some feedback.
I would not mind that.
And what it is right now, it's a finishing sauce and 2 rubs that we have pretty much got locked down that I'm certain we're going to come out with. What we've not nailed down yet is how we're going to release it. Is it going to be the same named product in 2 separate bottles, like we'll call it, whatever, badass sauce or whatever, and he'll release it in his line and I'll release it in mine? Or do we come together and do this completely collabo sort of one-off just company, if you will, where we actually 50-50 everything and release this under a kind of a tertiary title? So we're still kind of hammering that out, but it's coming out. We're both so excited about this product line that he and I have both put on hold other products that we've got to do this because it just clicked. I mean, I've not been this excited about a product in quite some time, and what I like most about it is I know it will be one of those kind of, in the sauce world, in the barbecue side, we look for what we call blues hog replacements, and blues hog is kind of the de facto competition sauce. People will take another sauce, mix it 50-50 of blues hog, and boom, that's their secret weapon for winning. Yeah. Well, we're looking for that replacement to kind of, nothing against Mr. Bill Arnold, he's a fine human being, but we think we can do blues hog better with more flavor and do it with some really cool ingredients. I mean, some of the things that we kind of pitched around, like I mentioned, was that orange habanero or pineapple orange habanero, some cherry, raspberry, so some different takes from the hot sauce world mixed with the barbecue world, and what Tracy and I both talked about is like this: if you mix 2 of the evil geniuses of 2 different worlds together and said this makes something, that's what this is. I don't know how much of his line you've tried, Scott, but there's not a bad product in his line.
He has some fantastic stuff. I haven't tried everything he's come up with.
He's got chili mixes. He's got dips. He's got gumbo mixes. I mean, just every single one of them a winner in their own right. But his line is a little spread out. He's going to kind of neck that down a little bit and get it to like 5 or 10 just amazing products. And I'm kind of doing the same thing. We're mentoring each other as much as we are building the sauce together. We're kind of becoming leaner, meaner businessmen on top of doing this collaboration project. And I really feel like we just crossed paths at this really, really opportune time. This is kind of like, Eric Clapton sat down with BB King and had that one really cool guitar session, right? I mean,
wow.
And it changed things. And this has that potential in my mind.
That sounds really intriguing, especially referring to it from the guitar angle.
Yeah.
Your barbecue stuff is top notch. His stuff, what I've tasted, is top notch just for you guys to collaborate. I really can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Well, how did you guys work together? Because you're based in Kentucky, he's based in Louisiana. Did you FedEx stuff back and forth?
So it's been a lot of trusting each other's gut, right? And this is what I'm talking about, where he finished my sentences and I'm finishing his, where he goes, so I've got this idea where I take one part your sauce, one part this, one part that, and then I go, but then if you took this and added it to it, he's like, oh, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. And he'll mix it together and try it, and he'll do a couple test cooks and ship me some, and I do the same. It's just that process of there's so many relations to the music scene and how artists are doing it now, as far as like, emailing MP3 clips back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
He's writing a really cool bass line and I'm writing some really cool high notes, or vice versa, that make this kind of this really funky kind of mix,
Yeah.
And like I said, as a music fiend and barbecue fan in general, I'm stoked to even be doing it. I mean, it's awesome. I've never met my culinary equivalent until I met Tracy, but he's great.
Very cool, very cool. That's exciting news. I mean, he's a great guy on top of everything too.
Well, that's just it. That's the other thing. I mean, he's just a fantastic human being. And what I love about this whole thing, and he'll never get enough credit for this, he and I had these ideas before all this stuff happened with my family, where I had to kind of put the company on hold.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him one day and said, Tracy, man, I hate to do this to you, but you take all the ideas that we've had and you release something great, man. I'm cool with that. I just want to see our ideas, released. And he's like, no, man, you go patch up what you got to patch up, get your family right, get your mind right, get your life right. I'll be waiting. And when you're ready, we're going to do this. And sure enough, man, I called him one day and said, you know what? I think I'm ready. I think it's time to put my game face back on and get out there. He's like, I've been waiting, that's all I needed to hear. I'll be shipping you something this week and we'll get this wrapped up. It's been phenomenal.
Well, one thing I must ask you guys not to do, don't come up with any cutesy compound name like Draper's Tailgaters or something like that. I don't want to see that.
No. We won't do that. We won't do that. It'll be something. I mean, it may be some tertiary name. You bring that up. That's one of my other pet peeves. If the name of your product is over 3 words long, or maybe 4, give it up. I hate that. It's like cherry, potently, garlic, meringue. Just okay. What is it? Just call it a sauce. And then tell me what's in it in the ingredients. But every ingredient doesn't have to be in the flipping title of the thing.
You know what? Not to get too far off topic, but one thing I noticed with Hotline Pepper products, I just literally today put up the review on my site, scottrobertsweb.com.
I saw that.
They, for the names, are very simple, habanero, and there's one called Evil Ooze. But underneath that, it kind of gave a little bit more explanation as to what it was, like a hatch and habanero hot sauce, or a habanero and jalapeno hot sauce.
And that's perfect.
Yeah. The name of the sauce is very simple, not more than 2-3 words, but just have a little, a subtitle or sub name or whatever you want to call it, just a little explanation underneath it to kind of describe what it is a little bit more.
And that's the way it ought to be. And, the other thing I like is when a company will take the time to have a little fun with their label. One of the things we've kicked around is, have like kind of a fake ingredients list on the side, freshly squoze baby seals, extract of, tiger penis. I don't know, but you know what I mean.
Oh my
like some really fun things that people go, what did I just read that? You know, and this line, it's going to be all about competition and winning, but it's going to be kind of a little machismo kind of thing and a little bit of swagger to it. But also, we want you when you look at that bottle, you get a big grin out of it. You know what I mean? One of my favorite things to do is walk down a store aisle to this day, and this is one of those things that only someone who's released products or buys a lot of products really gets into. But I love walking down an aisle and you see that bottle that catches your eye, and you pick the bottle up and you're like feeling of it. You're like, oh, it's got a good hand feel, it's got a good weight, and you start reading the label, and you'll see something funny on there. You're like, oh, that's awesome. You know, packaging is nearly as important as the product itself, but we want to have fun with that when we release this sauce, because that really speaks to who Tracy and I are. We're both veterans. We're both, you know, family guys, but we love to have fun with our industry first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. And well, I think what you're describing could be a huge crossover hit with his ties to the chili head community, your ties with the barbecue. I think just the potential of this, it could be huge. It could really bring in a lot of people from all subgenres, I guess you would call it, of the foodies world.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we want to do. I want people that have never really gotten to the hot sauce community, and I was that way until the summer. I mean, I read what you guys and like what Hot Sauce Daily was doing. I would try one or two here and there. It's like, you know, hot sauce isn't my thing. Well, I thought that until I went to, you know, the event in Houston, you know, the huge hot sauce festival they have out there, and then I realized, wait a minute. These are all just barbecue craftsmen just like I am. Yeah, they're not barbecuing. They're making hot sauces. Yeah, some guys are flakes and they're making some pretty funky stuff in their bathtub. But there's these other guys that are doing it right, and they're really taking this to another level with quality ingredients and standing by their brand and just the passion they have. I mean, you know, another great brand that I love, and I've not tried anything bad out of it, the whole Intensity Academy line. I think they're doing great things, and more barbecue people should know about those guys, and more, you know, chili heads should know about our barbecue guys.
Exactly. And you know what? Just personally myself, I've always been into both of the worlds, and I see, just like you, I see a lot of similarities, just the passion and the drive and, well, I'll use the word again, passion to create the highest quality product out there.
Exactly.
There are just so many good hot sauce makers nowadays. It's not just, you know, the ones who will come up with a product and call it Ass Blaster.
Exactly.
Try to make it as hot as possible with no flavor.
Right.
There are plenty of companies with great flavor, and the same goes with barbecue sauce. They're not all just horrible, like, you know, Hutt's barbecue sauce knockoffs or whatever.
That's right. You know, and that's what it is. It's that commitment to excellence that both sides, you know, have. That you've got to appreciate. I've given away, I mean, countless bottles of Tracy stuff and, you know, Intensity Academy stuff because, you know, anyone that asks me is like, hey, you have some hot sauce in your desk? Here, take this home with you, man. And I know when that bottle leaves my hands, those guys are going to reorder that bottle because it's fantastic stuff. And I love Cholula, but I can't go find, you know, Heartbreaking Dons at Walmart, and I'm going to order that stuff. You know what I mean? It's once you find the brands you really love on your hot wings or whatever, or in your salsa, you're going to stick with them. And it's the same thing with barbecue sauce.
Exactly. As we were talking, I was just texting with Tracy, and he would like to talk more about this next week. So I'm going to go ahead and get an interview with him, get his take on the whole thing. But yeah, it sounds really exciting. I can't wait to try those new products.
Yeah, like I said, I've not been this excited in a long time, and it's both professionally and personally, this just really came at a good time, and I'm fired up, man. I'm like you. The business side of me is just going nuts, going, wow, we exposed both communities at once to this amazing product, and I don't cut any corners on the barbecue side, and, you know, Tracy's an accomplished barbecue guy himself, even though he does mainly hot sauces, you know, and I know he's not going to cut any corners on the hot sauce side, and we really play back and forth and work off each other, and it's such a great relationship that we've got.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we get off the call?
Yeah, I mean, I just ask for everyone's patience as we revamp the rest of Draper's Barbecue in our line. Like I said, it's been a big rebuilding process. I know we don't answer the phones and the emails as much as we used to. That's about to change. I've settled into a new job. We've made some changes. And, you know, it's time. I'm starting to get my batteries charged up, starting to get amped up to really go do this thing. You know, come this spring, the show that we shot with Danielle Domofsky, BBQ, Barbecue Crawl is going to be out. And that just is a great time for us to relaunch ourselves and relaunch our brand and get excited about what it is we do again.
Excellent. Well, Shane, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I can always count on you to put out a great interview and not be at a loss for words.
No, I definitely talk entirely too much, man.
Well, for something like this, there's no time limits to a podcast. It works out just great. No problems.
Two, sage radio guys, you can go forever, right?
Well, anyway, I'm looking forward to trying your stuff. Of course, I'll, post about it. This is probably one of those reviews that I want to get to right away.
Yeah, don't let this linger for a year, man. Like, get this one out. It wasn't a year. That was unfair. But, this is going to be one that you'll...
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be one that you want to... I'll do this because I have a standing agreement with Brian and Marilyn of, Hot Sauce Daily. They always are my first review. Mm-hmm. But you're welcome to always get the second shipment, man.
Oh, that's totally cool. They're great people too. I love reading their perspective, their take on things.
Me too.
So thank you very much, and I'll see you more in the future.
All right, sounds great, man. I look forward to Tracy's interview next week as well.
Awesome. Well, you have a good night.
You too, Scott. Talk to you later.
Good stuff. And again, that's exciting news from both Shane Draper and Tracy Carter of Jack's Tailgaters. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Jack's Tailgaters, Tracy Carter is the owner and operator of that company, and he makes an extensive line of all kinds of spicy products, hot sauces, barbecue sauces, dip mixes, seasonings. Now, as Shane had alluded to in the interview, it sounds like Tracy is going to streamline his product line. Of course, I will ask Tracy more about that and the interview that's upcoming next week, so that's going to be pretty exciting. Also, I wanted to mention that Tracy's product from Jack's Tailgaters, the Pineapple Orange Habanero Sauce, actually won my Product of the Year for the year 2012. It is an absolutely spectacular sauce. Just a beautiful flavor profile, lots of sweet, lots of heat, and it's great for desserts, appetizers, as well as things like chicken and fish. So definitely check him out, as well as Shane's products, which are available at drapersbbq.com. Of course, I'm going to put the link in the show notes to both of their sites, both to drapersbbq.com and jackstailgaters.com. So if you love both good barbecue sauce and good fiery foods products, jump over to the show notes, which are available both at weeklyfirecast.com or the number 2guystalking.com/firecast. Make your way down to episode 24, look at the show notes, and click on those links. And now, here's the part of the show where I list everyone who has retweeted the link to the Weekly Firecast or shared the link on Facebook. And real quickly, how this works is whenever I post up the link to the latest episode of the Weekly Firecast, either on Facebook or on Twitter, if you share the link on Facebook, retweet the link on Twitter, I will mention your name in the very next episode, or the name of your company. And depending on who you are, it could be a cool way to hear your name mentioned, or if you're a company, to get your company's name mentioned. A little bit of free advertising for you just for sharing the love and spreading the word about the Weekly Firecast. Now, here are the people who retweeted the link on Twitter. There was Chilies, and the Twitter handle is spelled ChillyChiles, so it's like cold chili peppers, Chilies. There was Midwest Chili Heads, and his Twitter handle is JKNOLL, the numeral 4, or at JNoll4. There were the Spice Boys, and their Twitter handle is at The Spice Boys. And then who shared a link on Facebook? There was my friend Al Buddha Goldenberg of ILoveItSpicy.com, another great fiery foods blog. There was Michael Lampros of Gunther's Gourmet, whose excellent company could be found at Gunther'sGourmet.com. There was Jim Duffy of RefiningFiredChilies.com, a great supplier of both chili pepper seeds and chili pepper plants. And there was Steve Chambers, who shared a link on Facebook. There was Zach Leaf, who also shared a link. And of course, there was also Firehead Thomas Gately, who shared a link on Facebook. Matter of fact, he reported live from ZestFest 2013, and my talk with him was featured in the last episode. And also sharing the link on Facebook, there is Heath McDowell. Thank you very much, Heath. There's William Allison. There was Chris DiGiuseppe. And my cohort over at Two Guys Talking, Mike Wilkerson. Thanks to everybody who shared the link and retweeted. I appreciate all the promotion and the traffic that you guys provide in. It's great and it's very invaluable. And if you would like to do it next week or any other future week, you can simply go to twitter.com/Scott Roberts. That's my Twitter account. Or on Facebook, you can simply go to facebook.com/Scott Roberts Web. Be sure to like my page there. Follow me on Twitter. And then whenever I post a link to a new episode, simply share it, promote it, and I will mention your name in the next episode. And I appreciate all the love and support and the feedback, both positive and negative, that you've provided me. So if you want to give me any input about the Weekly Firecast, simply go to the numeral 2guystalking.com/Firecast, go to the simple web form, and let me know what you like or hated or any suggestions you have about the podcast. I love to hear from everybody. So that's probably enough talk from me from this episode. I want to tell everybody, God bless you all. And remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.